Hello, I'm Sam. Welcome to the Fifi Mangaka channel, which is my little corner on YouTube to talk about writing, my manga OLDE Treehouse, and everything related to webcomics and manga in general. And today I'm going to be walking through my process and my steps to storyboarding, writing dialogue, and thumbnailing chapters for my manga. I'm currently on chapter 3, and so I'm starting to refine my process, and I kind of just wanted to share that with you and, see if there's anything you do differently, or maybe teach something, or if you just want to watch for fun, that's cool too. So I use a program called Notion to organize everything about my manga, from the characters to the locations to the arcs and everything. Right now, OLDE Treehouse is on arc 1. It's called the Nosferatu Dilemma. So I break down my arcs into different sections, and I try to kind of ballpark the number of chapters that I think each section of the arc is going to be. This helps me keep up with the pacing in the story because I want to make sure that the pacing is sensible. So right now we're on chapter 3. So I'm going to open up my little Glory Peak New Colony Prima section and go right down to my chapter 3 draft. I will start out with a rough summary, and the rough summary is basically me trying to brain dump of the events that I think are going to happen in this chapter. It doesn't have to be perfect in detail and descriptive, and I'm not using dialogue at all with this rough summary. All I'm doing is trying to take what I'm visualizing in my head and put it onto the paper, or the screen in this case. So let's go ahead and write the rough summary for chapter 3. So I got my rough summary for chapter 3 done. It took a little bit of time. I think this is usually the most time-consuming part of writing the manga or working on a manga chapter, is getting out exactly what you want to happen. So what I do is I just write rough paragraphs of everything that happens, all of the events, and if there's dialogue that comes to my mind at this point, I write that dialogue down. It doesn't have to be exactly what the characters are going to say, but if there's something that definitely jumps out of my mind that I feel like the characters have to say, it definitely goes on there. So what I'm going to do next is take all of this summary that I wrote of what happens in chapter 3, and now I'm going to write the dialogue. And what that's going to help me do is when I'm doing my storyboarding, or, kind of to show you an example, when I'm doing these are very, janky. When I'm doing my thumbnails, which kind of look like that, it's going to help me place the dialogue bubbles in spots where they can be read easily and seen easily and not take away from the artwork. So that planning process, I think, is super important. Anyway, let's move on to the next step, which is taking this rough summary and now writing the official dialogue for this rough summary. So I left off yesterday where I finished the dialogue. And so the dialogue writing process for me, and the summary writing process, is pretty lengthy. So it did take me the whole day to get to the point where I was ready to take that summary and take that dialogue and then write the thumbnail, or draw the thumbnail sketches. So for my thumbnail sketching, even though I do all of my manga making digitally, I do my thumbnail sketches on my sketchbook traditionally, just because I feel like it's better for me to sketch. I still haven't quite gotten used to sketching on a digital tablet, and I'm not sure I will ever get used to it. I actually got my XP pen last year, so I've been using it for a whole year, but there's still something about, drawing on paper that just feels a little more natural to me. So does anyone else feel like that? Anyway, what we're gonna do now is take the dialogue that I've had written, take kind of the screen notes that I've written inside of my dialogue document, and we're going to turn that into thumbnail sketches. So if you're not sure what thumbnail sketches are, they're basically just small little drawings of an entire page of your comic, so that you can see how the panels look next to each other. You can see how your composition looks. You can start to work in your speech bubbles and see how they'll fit with each panel, so you can make sure that you're sort of designing that page in a way that can be readable. So it's an extremely important step with making a manga, making a comic. Another thing that's really important about this step is this is where I start to see, you know, overall this entire planning process is where I start to see whether or not I'm hitting and following the writing beats that I've set up for my story in the chapter. So story beats, I want to kind of do another video on that because I think it's such an important topic. But story beats are basically like the feel of events that occur in the story. So it's very important to get a feel for when things should happen, when they shouldn't happen. Beats kind of are like, you know, just the feeling you get when you're reading a story. Story beats are really important. When I'm doing this like whole writing process, I'm thinking about those beats. So for example, the previous chapter, chapter 2, was a very action heavy chapter with a couple of little lore drops here and there, nothing like expounded on greatly, but it was a pretty action heavy chapter. So I'm feeling like the beat for chapter 3 is going to be slowed down. I'm going to have a lot more slice of life, a lot more situations that kind of explain the character's personality and show a little bit more of the character's personality, because the way that I'm feeling with the narrative right now is that it should slow down a bit. Once you write enough and you've been like, you know, at this for a while, you'll kind of start to get a sense of when certain things should occur in your story, and those are the story beats. So you get better at it the more you do. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to start our thumbnails for chapter 3. So here are our thumbnails. So far you can kind of see it's very scraggly, it's very simplified, but this is like such an important step. And I'm about to wrap this video up, but I wanted to end kind of like with my thoughts on why this step is so important and why I feel like so many webcomic and manga authors skip this step. So this step is technically considered the writing step of making a comic. You're going through the summary of events that happen in the chapter, you're keeping track of the tropes you're using, the narrative arcs, the character development. It's all of the writing pieces that really make your story good. It happens at this planning stage. And I do feel like because a lot of us focus, and rightfully so, on the art, you know, we really, when it comes to the inking and drawing stage, that's the stage that we really put our best foot forward. And that's the stage that we really put our effort for. But in my opinion, this planning stage, this dialogue writing stage, this thumbnailing stage, the summary writing, this is where the story really takes shape. This is where you see if you have plot holes, whether you see if you're retconning things, whether, you know, try to read your story from your audience's perspective and see if things make sense to someone who has no idea what it's about. And I think it's really important for you to kind of develop your own process and strategy for how you go about this writing stage, because it will make or break what you write. And, you know, one of the points of me starting this channel is to kind of call a little bit more attention to the storytelling aspect of making comics, making manga. You know, at the very beginning of me starting this channel, I, you know, said there's a lot of art how-tos and there's a lot of how to panel, how to ink, and there's a lot of channels that kind of address that. And at the time that I made this channel, there were none that were talking about the writing and the storytelling and why that's important and why, you know, once you hit a certain artistic bar, you know, you got to focus on the writing, because at the end of the day, you have to tell a story. So I think, you know, my feeling is that this is the most important part. This is where you develop what happens, and coming up with your strategy for how you attack this part is super important. So I hope maybe looking at how I do it or seeing how I, you know, process my story, maybe it gives you some ideas, or maybe, you know, you do something different. I'm very curious to know what everyone else does. And otherwise, if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I really want to do more behind the scenes stuff, just because OLDE Treehouse is picking up and I don't really have time to be getting all this B-roll for, like, you know, fancy YouTube videos. But also I want to show everybody what I'm working on, and, you know, build a community of others who are also working on their own stories and writing too. So if this is something that you like, there will definitely be more of it. And I hope I'll see you in the comments on those videos. So until next time, as usual, bye-bye.